Let's start with one undeniable thing. Jimin and Jungkook held hands. That's all it was, a handshake. But from there the world seemed to split. Some people knew, some people denied, and some people tried to obscure the meaning that no one who truly saw it could deny. A gesture so simple, yet powerful enough to shake the bonds of those who had long been convinced that the handshake wasn't real. Not just because the handshake happened, but because it happened, naturally, without hesitation and with full awareness of who they were holding and where they stood. What was most striking was the silence of the intertwined hands. A silence flooded by 1,000 voices out there trying to hide the facts behind the opinions. Some were fan service-like, but for those who have observed Jimin for many years, they know. He's not the type to trade sincerity for image. Especially when it comes to Jungkook. We all know Jimin doesn't like intimacy. There's incredible control in his every movement. So when he keeps his hand on Jungkook's, it's not because of desire. It's because of feeling. And when Jungkook doesn't control himself, when he just keeps calm, a little reluctant to open his mouth, then all theories collapse. But that's the world when there's no hope. They'll deny it. They'll make excuses, build stories, and accuse the innocent just to get the same feeling. That maybe, just maybe, the relationship between Jimin and Jungkook isn't an illusion. Then another narrative emerges. That it's just to make others jealous. That it's part of a tactic. That this is a spontaneous reaction from fans because they're watching. But all of that seems hollow when faced with what's truly real. Because when two people connect, their bodies speak in a language that can't be manipulated by cameras or scripts. And Jikookers know it. They don't create fantasy. They only imagine small nuggets of emotion. A glance behind the waist. A light touch in public places. A whisper that's unheard of but clearly there. Everything is real. It all exists. What creates drama is precisely the Mina who are refuted for what is so obvious. Those who are tempted by every blink of an eye as a code. Those who build their own ship on white sand. And when that ship begins to waver under the grip of Jikook's hand, panic sets in. Then comes stubborn denial. The irony is this. If it really wasn't a concern, why would they spend all day in silence? If it were just a whim, why would they write a long essay to refute it? The answer is simple. Because they know in their own hearts it's no small matter. Because they know there's a force they can't control, and that scares them. Jimin and Jungkook aren't actors in a play. They're human. And what they're doing is an expression of something deeper than mere friendship. They're not trying to be anything. They're simply living in their own universe with their own language. A language that can't always be understood by men who are simply seeking sensation. What happens when they're together always feels different. There's a warm silence, a space between them that no one else can enter. It's as if the world shrinks to just two people. They don't need dialogue. One move is enough. One look equals the moment. When Jimin stepped forward, Jungkook followed without thinking. When Jungkook touched, Jimin responded without fear. There was no attempt to attract attention. Instead, the intimacy felt so natural, as if their bodies had known each other for a long time. Their movements were seamless, like a dance that hadn't been rehearsed but had long been memorized. They weren't playing roles. They weren't adding a narrative. What was happening was a comfort born of trust. And Jikookers don't ask for more. They don't need recognition from the world. They just want those moments to stay alive, stay real, and stay protected. Because they know that what they saw wasn't an illusion. That the embrace wasn't an act. That Jimin and Jungkook weren't just two co-workers grieving each other, but two souls who were smitten with each other in a noisy, demanding world. And when the world can't accept their quiet honesty, their voices grow louder. But for Jimin and Jungkook, perhaps that doesn't matter. Because as long as they know each other, as long as they can still smile and laugh with each other, as long as that hand still feels warm, the world can say whatever it wants. But those of us who see with our hearts know that love doesn't always require confession. Sometimes just a single handshake is enough to say everything. Because truly, the most sincere love doesn't come from grandiose words or public confessions. It lives in silence, in small gestures intended for no one but the one person who can see it. And that's what Jimin and Jungkook are like. They're not a stage couple, not a fairy tale constructed by the public. Theirs is a true story that grows quietly, but becomes increasingly difficult to hide. Jimin is someone who knows how to keep his distance, yet is willing to open up space for those he trusts. And Jungkook, the golden magne, isn't one to easily give up his comfort. But in every shot, in every accidentally captured video, we see something different when they're together. They stop acting for the world and start being themselves. Just look at the way Jimin looks at Jungkook when he laughs. That look is undemanding. But beneath it, there's pride, there's understanding, something only someone who knows you more deeply than anyone else can. And Jungkook, so wild on the outside, becomes calm by Jimin's side. It's as if Jimin is his home, a place he can return to without having to explain where he's been. That's why every moment with Jimin feels so touching. Because they're not selling intimacy, but experiencing something they truly experience. When the cameras aren't rolling, they're still searching for each other. When everyone else is buzzing with speculation, they remain silent in a togetherness that only they understand. And perhaps this is what most irks those who oppose it. That a love that isn't officially announced can be so real. That two men who are supposed to be acting aren't acting. That two idols who should be maintaining their image are protecting each other in such a personal way. We don't see Jimin forcefully pulling Jungkook's hand away. We don't see Jungkook hiding his touch. What we see is sincerity. A conscious decision to stay by each other's side even though they know it will spark an argument. And in a world like this, the courage to love silently is the strongest form of love. It's not just about holding hands. It's about how they choose not to pull away. About how their every step feels coordinated not by practice but by habit. The habit of always being in the same orbit. Of being each other's center of gravity amidst a world that constantly tries to pull them in opposite directions. They never say, "We're together." But every action they take screams louder than any verbal confession. And Jikook knows, true love isn't always announced. Sometimes, it just needs to be seen by those calm enough to notice. Jimin and Jungkook aren't a perfect couple. They have wounds, they've fought, they've distanced themselves. But that's precisely what makes their relationship so human. They're not a myth. They're real. And every time they return to each other, the world seems to stop for a moment. Because there's something so honest between them that it can't be faked. If love is a language only two souls understand, then Jimin and Jungkook have written their own poem. Without ink. Without words. Just through their eyes, their touch, and the silence that speaks louder than 1,000 explanations. And if one day they choose to say, "Yes, we love each other," it won't be a surprise. It will simply be a confirmation of something we already knew, just from the touch of a hand.